For about the last 16 years, I've bicycled back and forth to my full-time place of employment about 90% of the time. I know what it is to fear the drivers on the road, especially after being hit by a pickup truck driver in February 2013. After that accident, it took most of the rest of the year for me to recover fully from my injuries. And even after I returned, I struggled a little bit from time to time because of a certain amount of fright that I had of possibly being hit again. And I've learned to anticipate much more widely what might happen regarding the drivers that are coming towards me from behind me and from either side. And at the same time, I also have a certain amount of respect for the drivers on the road. And Lord willing, I pray each and every day that I will be safe and that they have a certain amount of respect for me. So my fear of the drivers on the road, in other words, includes a little bit of fright, a little bit of anticipation, and a little bit of respect, perhaps, all mixed together. What does it mean to fear the Lord? It's a huge topic, and we can't answer it in just a few moments of reflection, but Psalm 128 mentions the fear of the Lord twice, and it connects the fear of the Lord with the man who fears the Lord. If you remember at the end of Psalm 127, it also refers to the man and the man's blessing upon him and his family for walking in obedience to the Lord. The blessings in this particular psalm are of or for the man, and they are connected with Zion, also with Jerusalem and the people of Israel. I suggest that this psalm is applicable to God's people, and in terms of application, applicable now to those who put their faith in Jesus Christ. This psalm, I want to suggest, should be interpreted primarily within the songs of ascent, that is Psalms 120 through 134, but then also broadly throughout the Psalms in general, and from there extended to the whole of Scripture. And this psalm, I know, is typically, we probably think it is a call of blessing upon people who fear the Lord. And that is the case to be sure, but it is only because it refers to the man, first of all, who fears the Lord and in anticipation of the Messiah to come. As developed all throughout the Psalms, this man is Jesus Christ himself. Now, the psalm writers did not necessarily know that there would be a person named Jesus Christ who would fulfill this psalm, but nevertheless, the Messiah, the eternal King that has been promised to reign, is what this psalm ultimately refers to. And you might be asking, well, how could that be the case? Because it refers to this man's children and their children being blessed for walking in obedience to the Lord. Well, in Hebrews chapter 2, I've pointed it out this before and probably need to go to it to show it briefly. In Hebrews chapter 2, verses 11 through 18, the writer there points to how all of Scripture, and particularly a few scriptures that he mentions, point to how God has given Jesus children, which is an interesting concept. And so, even though this psalm had its direct application when it was written in all of Scripture in anticipation of the Messiah King, the eternal King to come, even the children's children at this point are pointing to the Messiah and the people God would give the Messiah, this King to reign, as they put their faith in him. What does it mean to fear the Lord? Well, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 1. Peter directs the believers to whom he's writing there that since they call on God the Father who judges everyone impartially, look what he says: live out your time as foreigners here in reverent fear. This is the aspect of fear that Scripture speaks particularly strong about. And so, even as I raise the question, I hope it prompts your thinking a little bit about what it means to fear the Lord. And this idea of reverent fear is the one aspect of fear that I do not have as a bicycle rider. I don't reverently fear that is worship or surrender to the drivers. But that is the kind of fear that biblical fear is about: worshipful surrender, submission, and respecting God to the point of being willing to obey and follow his teachings as Jesus Christ has given them and as they are passed on to us through the disciples.